Hey guys, welcome back to Spectra Creative, the channel where we talk toy collecting, pop culture, and occasionally I pimp my hieroglyphic book, Doodling with Purpose. It's available on Amazon. There's also a whole YouTube channel or playlist. Okay, enough of that. Toys. We're talking toys. We're talking, if you, based on the thumbnail and description, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Hasbro Pulse is sort of the way they've pivoted from doing Haslab items, which require a minimum buy-in in order to even move forward. And, you know, they have tiers. I mean, I think everyone knows how this works, right? They've done Galactus, and they tried to make the Cookie Monster, and they made a sail barge, and a Razor Crest, and blah-blah, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, some of them failed. The Rancor failed. Cookie Monster failed. The lightsaber from, the Obi-Wan bad guy chick, third sister, I can't remember her name. Yeah, that's how memorable some of the Disney Plus stuff is. So what I want to kind of talk about is I like that they've pivoted to basically doing items that are not as big, like as Galactus or a Sentinel, and because of that, they're much more comfortable that they're going to get that minimum number of pre-buy, and they even caveat with, hey, we're not going to have a meter. We're not going to tell you, we need 8,000 people or 5,000 people. But if it winds up that we get less buy-in than needed to justify all of the tooling and development, it can still risk being canceled. But so far, things like Dragonman and the animated Sentinel and Mephisto, they're doing more and more of these kind of items. So I've been brainstorming, kind of put together a list of things. I think this is a great alternative to the, Matty Collector, Mattel Creations, Haslab. I mean, yes, there's giant items like the Cantina and Galactus. Yes, that I get why they require such a buy-in, because even, a $1 billion Fortune 500 company can't just put out $1 million in tooling, or, $500,000 in tooling without a buy-in. Retailers handle that most of the time, but Haslab pushes that onto the collector. Okay, so I'm blathering on about that. I want to jump into some ideas I had. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts on this. All right, so if I was running Hasbro Pulse, these are some of the items that I would love to see them do in this, lower, non-tiered, minimum order required, smaller items. So, speaking of Galactus, I did recently pick up a Galactus. I passed on him originally because I felt he was too modern looking. I really wanted a classic Galactus, kind of like the original Build-A-Figure. Galactus from the 1990s. Obviously, there's Galactus from the 1960s who looked a little silly. But yeah, I felt the Haslab one with all of the extra like blue bulbs and on his hat, helmet and stuff. Just it wasn't jiving. I eventually gave in and did get it. I really enjoy it. They don't bother me as much as I thought they would. But what if Hasbro Pulse put out a vintage Galactus head? Just the head. Make it swappable. I mean, they sold, 20,000 Galacti? Galacteme? What's the plural of Galactus? Galactiote. So, yeah, why not just, so you've sold 20,000. The chance of 5,000 of those people wanting a classic head is pretty good. So, why not make a new head? And it could come with a whole bunch of new faceplates as well that could work with the original head, for different expressions. All right, another one complementing an existing Haslab item. So we're getting our Cantina, right? Well, we are missing a lot of characters from the Cantina, specifically all the humans, both the grubby humans and the spacemen. So, as well as there's a lot of the alcoves are missing like one figure, if you will. So I would love to see, what if instead of one giant thing like, Galactus or the Cantina, you put out a whole bunch of little things, like put out 10 Cantina grubby human spacemen and throw in those extra, aliens, like a Cantina figure, like that Death Star pack from San Diego Comic-Con years ago, right? Where they, you get like 20 figures, right? Yeah, I think that people would buy into that because those are figures that aren't really going to sell at retail, grubby humans and random spacemen. And this way the tooling is, taken care of. All right. Speaking of the Cantina, so another one, in the video I made about the placement of characters, I mentioned that the Cantina in the expanded universe has 2 more seats in the back. There is an archway in the Cantina set, but there's not actually a booth. So for those of us who bought the Cantina, I would love to see Hasbro put out 2 more back wall booths that could snap into the back to keep building out the Cantina and having enough tables to actually accommodate all of the alcove aliens, because right now we're missing 2, at least the way even though they weren't there on set. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. So all right, so those are 2 ways to complement previous HasLab items. I'll kind of just run through some other things that sort of I've always wanted that I feel like wouldn't, are much smaller than a regular HasLab item. A giant beam like they had at San Diego Comic-Con for Cyclops. It would be really, where you could never pack that in with a figure, like a beam that's like, 2 feet long, if you will. So yeah, so Cyclops could like blast, a Sentinel like he is doing in the Comic-Con display. So yeah, I'd love to and that's something, yeah, would never work at retail, but just sell that as like one item, for, do a whole bunch of Marvel Legends, 6-inch G.I. Joe, Star Wars, just effects like that, where you could put larger effects that wouldn't fit in with a regular figure. All right, there's a couple Star Wars playsets that I think would work perfect for this. Hasbro has been putting out a lot of hallways. They did have the bunker, which I thought was really cool, the Endor bunker. But I think there's a couple playsets that are bigger than a hallway, but not big enough that they require a full HasLab Cantina execution. So, for example, Yoda's hut. I mean, we had that in the vintage line. It would be great to get a Dagobah playset. It's much smaller than the Cantina. I think it would be a perfect Hasbro Pulse pre-buy item. A Wampa cave, also super easy, and much smaller than the Cantina, but a really cool environment. Obi-Wan's house, that would be another really cool one. Again, much smaller than the Cantina, but a great, collectors are really into displaying, and Hasbro's been embracing the set piece, if you will. All right, let's see. I've got my notes here. A Star Destroyer bridge. Also, yeah, that would be a great mini Star Wars dollhouse to display, everything from your bounty hunters to just, Vader and Imperial officers. Emperor's throne room. I don't need a full Death Star, but I mean, it's the scene of the climactic duel from Return of the Jedi. How do we not have a playset dollhouse of the Emperor's throne room? And the reason I call it a dollhouse and not a playset, playsets have action features. Dollhouses don't. So the Cantina doesn't have action features, so it's a dollhouse. Okay, let's see. Rooftops. It'd be really cool, like a Daily Bugle rooftop, or just, I know you can buy generic ones on, like from Etsy and stuff, but it'd be cool to have like a Daily Bugle branded Marvel, rooftop to display Spider-Man and, other street level characters. All right, another one would be what I call smoking heads. No, I don't mean like heads on fire. Obviously, Marvel, ever since, Joe Quesada took over as editor-in-chief, he banned any smoking. So, Wolverine doesn't smoke cigars anymore. Pip the Troll doesn't smoke cigars. But how cool would it be to have a Wolverine head with a cigar? Or they should be making Pip, and, or Nick Fury. Originally there was a head with a Nick Fury with a cigar back in Toy Business Day, but they had to remove it. Because, yeah, you shouldn't be having, tobacco products and kids' products sold at retail. But online, much like they can have a character that looks like the Christian Devil, even though he's not, you could sell heads with cigars, for Wolverine and Nick Fury and anyone else that you want to, smoke a cigar. I mean, as adults, we can handle that. I agree. Kids shouldn't have access, and much like smoking heads, another variant would be bloody versions of characters. So a lot of superheroes, your Deadpools, your Savage Dragons, your Wolverines, there's blood, and you don't see this at retail. There's like some Invincible figures with blood on them, but again, they're sold online. So that would be another great thing that Hasbro could do, is do more, collector adult versions of figures with, actual, not just battle damage where Spider-Man's costume is ripped, but there are some of us who would like characters that have actual blood damage. Not me. I'm not so much into gore, but I respect those who would. And then wrapping it up, two more Star Warsian ones. Yavin, it'd be a throne room dais would be awesome. I mean, it's the closing shot for A New Hope. Like, that would be, that I could see maybe be more like a hallway kind of thing where they could actually sell that at, online retail. And then the last one, I know I'm kind of Star Wars heavy, but what can I say? Years ago, Hasbro put out a Vader's funeral pyre prototype, but they couldn't find anyone to buy in. Because again, much like the cigars or the bloody variants, no retailer wanted to carry a toy of a beloved character on fire. But collectors would love that. And it's a key, amazing moment that's never been toyed. It's never been turned into a toy. So, not appropriate for retail, but perfect for what Hasbro has. Pulse, not Haslab, but those, again, the Dragonman and the all these non-tiered new items. So, all right, Hasbro, if you're listening, or if anyone knows people at Hasbro, pass this video along to them, because I think I just gave them a whole bunch of cool ideas, because that's stuff I want, so I'm glad to give the ideas for free. What do you guys think? Any other thoughts? Any of the items on my list, ones that you guys would really like, or are there ones I'm missing that are like, oh my god, what a great idea, that I'm totally forgetting about? So based on Hasbro's new model for doing this, love to let's have a discussion in the comment section and see if maybe we can get Hasbro to pay attention to this stuff, because they definitely are listening to fans, and we love new ways to display figures. All right, thanks for watching, thanks for joining us, and I will see you guys in the next video.